If you watched any of Trump's Great American State Fair tonight, I mean, I'm sorry for you, I guess, but you might have thought you were just watching a Trump rally. Well, the 16-day event bills itself as a free, nonpartisan celebration of America's 250th birthday with no ulterior motives. Nobody supposed to be benefiting aside from the American people. That's clearly not the case. I mean, just to put a fine point on it, tonight's festivities were produced, at least in part, by the production company behind Trump's rally at the Ellipse on January 6th. A company that the New York Times reports has received millions of dollars worth of no-bid contracts since Trump retook office. And it is just one of the now multiple companies the Times reports has received no-bid contracts from the Trump administration related to the country's 250th birthday. Now, for anyone out there thinking, well, doesn't it make sense for the government to celebrate the country's 250th birthday? Yeah, of course it does. The country should be celebrating. That is why a decade ago, Congress created a nonpartisan nonprofit called America 250 to help plan and produce a celebration. But this isn't that group. You see, the Trump administration decided to make their own group. Instead of America 250, this group is confusingly called Freedom 250. And it is Freedom 250 that just so happened to hire the firm from Trump's January 6th Ellipse rally. It is Freedom 250 that decided the academic institution it should partner with for this celebration of American history was the unaccredited right-wing evangelical group. It is Freedom 250 that is holding tonight's rally on the National Mall, headlined by Trump himself. And all of these pro-Trump, pro-MAGA festivities are costing quite a lot of money. Some of that money is coming from private donors. As the New York Times reports, Freedom 250 got some of its fund by offering perks to private sponsors. Of course they did. For $500,000, sponsors could get their logo featured at Freedom 250 events. For $1 million, sponsors got access to Trump himself. But of course, a lot of these festivities are being paid for with your tax dollars. The nonprofit watchdog groups, the Revolving Door Project and Public Citizen, have tracked nearly $103 million worth of public contracts and grants from the Trump administration to what the groups describe as, quote, a network of politicized entities under the control of Trump administration officials and political allies. There we go. All under the guise of America's 250th birthday. Joining me now is Democratic Senator from Georgia, Jon Ossoff. Good to see you.
Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tonight was technically the kickoff of America 250, and I think a lot of people feel two realities right now. One, pride in being an American, pride in being in this great country, and the other reality is watching the President of the United States essentially make money from this celebration, make it about himself, help benefit people who owe him favors. How do you not square, but how do you think about these two realities?
Well, I think it's a call to action for patriotic Americans to recognize that at the 250th anniversary of our country's founding in rejection of kingdom and monarchy, we have these events being hijacked by the narcissism of the president who styles himself most like a king. And it wouldn't be a Trump event without no-bid contracts and the sale of access. Corruption is par for the course at this point. I think the Trump show has jumped the shark. I don't think many people are tuning in because he's lost it. But more importantly, what we're seeing is how destabilized he is by his global humiliation in the Middle East, which he cannot deny or lie away. His approval rating sits at 34%, while Americans pay more than ever for groceries and health care and rent. And he's out here building a monument to himself and adorning his office in gold trim while, because of his actions, cancer patients face the loss of their health insurance. He has cemented his place in history in disgrace. And now our job as patriotic Americans inspired by the legacy of our founding is to marshal all of our passion and resources and energy to restoring checks and balances this fall, because we won't get another chance at this. And this race in Georgia will be decisive. I am the only incumbent Democratic senator running for re-election in a state that Donald Trump won. They will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to unseat me. And I'm asking folks to visit electjohn.com to support my effort.
One of the things you've worked very hard on is this housing bill that I started the show talking about. And this morning, this all happened in the same day. Sometimes you can't make it up in Washington. Trump just decided not to sign this bill. And instead, he demanded that your Republican colleagues move forward in essentially pushing a voter suppression bill forward. I have my own thoughts. I mentioned some of them. What do you think he pulled this all today?
Let's be very clear about what the president is saying to the American people. The president is saying that he will not sign a bill whose purpose is to make housing affordable unless his allies in Congress pass a voter suppression bill to rig the election. He's saying, I won't even sign a bill that will give economic relief to Americans unless the rules of this election are changed so that he, Donald Trump, cannot be held accountable for all of his misdeeds. Because that's what he really fears most of all, is that when there is a change in the balance of power and when we restore checks and balances, he knows that there will be subpoenas flying, that officials from his administration will be testifying under oath about the full range of misconduct and corruption that we already know has been happening since the moment he was sworn in.
He also today had a lunch with the Republican caucus. You mentioned a number of the things a number of them are pissed off at him about, including him trying to jam an $88 billion ask for money for the Iran war down their throats, pushing for this voter suppression bill, which there are not the votes for. He hasn't endorsed some sitting members of the Senate. I just played a little bit of YOLO John Cornyn, as I like to call him. What's going on with that? And do you think there are more opportunities to work with Republicans on some of the things that might be priorities to you and some of your colleagues?
Look, I've got good working relationships with a lot of Republican colleagues. That's how I've gotten so much done for Georgia, from passing landmark prison reform legislation to legislation that forces big tech companies to report online predators. And I know, because I talked to them, that many of them are furious, that many of them feel that the president has lost control and lost the plot. And yet, we cannot hold out hope for a sudden outbreak of courage and integrity on the part of this president's allies in Congress, because he's already blown through so many red lines, and they stand with him because they're afraid of him. It is only by winning decisively this fall and demonstrating to his allies that they put their seats and their political careers at risk by continuing to do his bidding that we will change their behavior.